Hey everyone, it's Mike. Welcome back. I'm really excited to talk about something today. I've been fascinated with logotherapy for years. I have studied it, read about it, taken some trainings in it. I have a variety of trainings. I've trained in CBT and REBT, transactional analysis, and trainings in Gestalt therapy, psychodrama. I am fully certified in choice theory, reality therapy, even some hypnotherapy. But I absolutely love logotherapy and have been astonished that it is not more fully utilized by most therapists. I recommend Man's Search for Meaning to every client I work with. The idea that Dr. Frankl basically asks the question, what do you do when everything's been taken from you? How do you go on? He answered that question. Now, to be fair, he developed the logotherapy even before the Holocaust. But he survived one of the worst forms of humans' inhumanity to their fellow man that civilization has ever had to endure. How did he do it? Logotherapy gives us the answer. The challenge is that logotherapy is difficult to access. It's theoretical, it's philosophical, it's sometimes a bit esoteric. The noetic piece, the spiritual piece. It's not an easy idea to understand and to access. With all due respect to people who have tried, there have been many, many people who have picked up where Dr. Frankl have left off, as best as anyone can pick up where Dr. Frankl left off. And they have done so admirably and nobly. What I will say, though, is that despite their best efforts, logotherapy still remains a difficult therapy and model to utilize. That's why it is not more well known or well utilized. So I have tried to rectify that matter. I created a manual, and this has been years. I've been fascinated with logotherapy for years, and I've been thinking, how can we make this more practical? And so I developed a manual, Logotherapy 2.0, a practical solution-focused logotherapy clinician's manual, and I call it City Edition down here because I'm from New York City, and we don't play around. No frills, bare bones, get to the point, let's get to it. We don't have time to fool around. Practical, pragmatic, real world, hit the ground running. That's the way we do things. And that's the manual I wanted to create. How to do therapy from the get-go, logotherapy, directly, immediately. And I created this manual to help clinicians to do just that. It is a really down-to-earth, practical manual. Now, I've developed a concept that I'm going to explain, and I'm going to do a series of videos on this called the Socratic Dereflection Dialogue. Now, for those of you that know logotherapy, you know that three interventions are dereflection, paradoxical intention, and the Socratic dialogue. Now, dereflection is you kind of you reflect it off yourself. You don't focus on yourself. You focus out there, what's other things and other people that you can focus on. That is, again, it's more meaning and purpose, and you just kind of like take it off of yourself and look for the greater meaning, the greater purpose that's out there. And of course, the Socratic dialogue is when you have discussion with people to find some meaning and purpose and value in some of the things that are going on. What's the positive intent? What are we looking for? How can we find meaning in even in suffering? And the reason I'm calling this the Socratic Dereflection Dialogue, and what makes this Logotherapy 2.0, is that the process, the discussion of talking about what the client comes in with the mindset of, let's find meaning and purpose in this. What is a solution? Where do we want to go? What's the values we're bringing? What is the positive intent in negative situations? That is 80% the intervention. That talk, that meaning-focused, purpose-driven discussion is the intervention. That outside of you, taking whatever you're going through, talking about where do we want to go, what's the meaning we want to find. Now I'll give you an example. For those of you, and I imagine most, if not all, familiar with Carl Rogers' person-centered therapy, remember he talks about if you can create the conditions, the necessary and sufficient conditions, right? Congruence, unconditional positive regard, acceptance, right? What he mentions is that that environment, those conditions, are what leads to growth. That a client can find the courage to face those things themselves and find the resources within them, right? It reminds me of Aldous Huxley's famous quote that there is nothing wrong with a person that what's right with them cannot fix, right? We have it within us. And in person-centered therapy, the process, that environment, is the intervention. Unlike other therapies, maybe CBT, where you talk and then you have homework, in person-centered, no, that the conversation within that environment of unconditional positive regard, acceptance, non-judgmental, congruence, that is the intervention. You don't need to add anything on top of it, right? Similarly, with some other therapies, most notably solution-focused, especially as practiced by Elliott Kane and Adam Ferrer, they're basically saying that in solution-focused, the goal is you identify what is the best hope or outcome that the client is looking for. What's the solution? Where do they want to be? You don't need to focus on what the problem is. The client already knows what the problem is. They've been focusing on that forever. So the entire therapy session is solution-focused, goal-oriented, outcome-focused, best hopes-focused. And the whole discussion, the whole therapy is that. And that is the intervention. So if a person says they want to be happy, we talk about what does that look like? When have you been happy? And it triggers in your mind, when have I been happy? When have I been confident? When have I had peace of mind? Yeah, I remember that. I remember those times. Yeah, it feels good. And you can almost see the person, their body language. They start to sit up straight. And yeah, that was really, and I remember that. Yeah, that was great. And from that state that you trigger in your memory, you're in the best, most empowered state to come up with solutions to whatever problem you're facing. And that's it. You don't have to do anything beyond that. The process is the intervention. So whereas solution focus says, what's your best hope, what's your outcome? In person-centered, it's the circumstance, right? You set the environment of congruence and non-judgmental and acceptance. In what I'm calling the Socratic Dereflection Dialogue, that is, the outcome is meaning and purpose. And so whatever the client comes in with, your job as the therapist is, the client can talk, but you're always going to pivot to, but what's the meaning? Because that's what they want. And remember what Dr. Frankl said. We have no choice. Human life has meaning. That's it. And we're driven to find that meaning, to uncover that meaning, right? And that we can. And by making choices, we have to take responsibility and to find the meaning and uncover that meaning as best we can. And we're driven to do it. We have no choice. And so 80% of Logotherapy 2.0 is this conversation. They'll come in, a client will come in with a problem, and they'll want to focus on the problem. Let me tell you what the problem is. I can't wait. I could go on for years telling you what the problem is. And our job as logotherapists is to focus everything they say on what's the meaning. How do you do that, though? If a person says, let me tell you all the things that are going right at work and at home, I don't know what to do. I'm overwhelmed. I might be breaking up with my significant other. I might get fired. And your goal is to redirect them away from the problem in a conversation, not in an aggressive way, in this dialogue, in this conversation, to constantly refocus the client on the outcome, which in logotherapy is finding some meaning, finding some purpose in it. Is this congruent with your values, with who you are and who you want to be? And what Frankl says, we can't help but do this, right? It's in our mind. That's what we're looking for, but we forget that. We're so focused on the negative. You know, you'll notice we can remember negative issues no problem. But a positive issue? Good luck. I live here in New York. Every time the subway is late, every time you run down the stairs to get the subway and it takes off just as you're getting, you can wave it by, and you got to wait a whole nother round to wait. You remember that forever. But when you arrive and it shows up just as you get there and you can walk right in, well, we forget that. We forget those times, right? You know, you're crossing the street and the light changes just in time for you to get there, so it stops the cars and you don't even have to slow down. Who remembers that? But when you get to the corner and the light turns and it says stop, the cars are going to go, and now you have to wait a whole nother cycle before you can cross. Oh, we remember that. Remember that all the time. Right? So we are geared toward that. So we want to help people think about and strengthen the muscle. Because if human life has meaning, and we are driven to find it, and it is there, why is that muscle so weak? Because we don't use it. Let me ask you a question. You have people that have social anxiety, and they may find themselves forcing themselves to go to parties or gatherings. And more often than not, my guess is it's not as bad as they thought, right? Sometimes maybe. But more often than not, it's not. And you would think, they'd say, oh, I worried about this. It wasn't that bad. Oh, so next time, maybe I shouldn't worry so much. But they do. And it could be not as bad 10 times, but each time they act like it's bad. And you think to yourself, why haven't they learned? Why hasn't the brain imprinted? You've been worried 10 times. Every single time. It wasn't as bad as you thought. So the next time, the 11th time, you have all this evidence, you're going to feel good, right? No, they're just as anxious. Why? Because they haven't imprinted that positive experience. They haven't taken a moment, 30 seconds, to acknowledge, that was really good. Actually, that wasn't so bad. Right? So they don't integrate it into their brain. It's here today, it's gone tomorrow. It's like in and out, right? We're so glad it wasn't so bad. Let's get past it, right? It's kind of like if you've ever procrastinated about something, you have something to do at work or school, and you say, let me go on social media. Let me just kind of write school. And more often than not, that makes you feel worse. And if you actually did the task, or when you do, you feel better that you've done it, right? It's just so much better. Why don't we remember that? It's like we start again every time it happens, right? We haven't used that muscle. So Logotherapy 2.0 and this manual is designed to give you the language that when you sit down, you have to set the stage from the first session. This is going to be meaning-focused, purpose-focused, outcome, values-driven therapy. Now, you're not going to tell the client they can't talk about problems. They can talk about whatever they want. You're going to redirect it to meaning because you know life has meaning and we're driven to find that meaning. But that muscle's been weakened. It's atrophy. And your job as a therapist is to strengthen it. And you're to strengthen it through the Socratic Dereflection Dialogue. Now, in this case, the process, that dialogue, is the intervention. But not 100%, 80%. Because remember what Dr. Frankl said. How do you find meaning? Well, there is the connection with other people, right? Doing things, human contact, creating something, right? He mentions that. And he also talks about acceptance at some point. That's where you bring in the cognitive behavioral component. So there are ways that you can uncover and find and even create meaning. That's the 20%. That is the interventions. And I'm going to share with you interventions from multiple different theoretical orientations. CBT, NLP, solution-focused, logotherapy, in this case, paradoxical intention, right, which is similar to exposure in behavioral therapy, right? So there is a point during the therapy session where you do provide practical techniques and interventions, activities, homework in between sessions, right? But the primary intervention is the process, is that Socratic Dereflection Dialogue. And in this manual, I give you the language to do it. So I do share with you the different theoretical orientations like CBT and some of the things that they do. So when you get to that piece, you can pick and choose. And I have what I call a checkerboard model. So you can pick different interventions that at that point in the therapy, you can brainstorm different ways to create, find, uncover meaning. But that is only 20%. The 80% is the meaning and purpose-focused dialogue, the conversation. It catapults a person's brain to think in meaning. Because again, as Dr. Frankl said, there is meaning in human life under any circumstances and every circumstance. And we are driven to do that, to find that. And we've allowed that brain muscle to weaken. Our job is to strengthen it. That's what a logotherapist does. Now, in this manual, I show you how to have that conversation. I then show you, which is 80% of our job. I show you the 20%. I share many, many techniques and interventions from other theory, choice theory, CBT, REBT, solution-focused, NLP, philosophical counseling, behavioral activation, to fill in that 20% where we actually have techniques and specifics on how to do that. But I'm also going to share with you, can you apply logotherapy at both the micro and the macro level? Now, what do I mean by that? The micro is what a person's coming in with. Had a fight with my significant other. Kids drive me crazy. Had a fight with a neighbor. My boss might be firing me. Got into a car accident. Went to the doctor. Got a diagnosis. Oh boy. That's what they come in with. And we can use logotherapy 2.0 techniques to directly address those everyday, or maybe not so everyday problems. That's the micro. The macro is just creating meaning overall, right? Having a family. People get meaning. That's your legacy. That's a meaning. Being part of a community organization. Spiritual. Religion. Going to your church, synagogue, your mosque, right? Your temple. Volunteering. Appreciating beauty of nature. Your creative side, art, music, poetry. Even if not directed toward a particular adversity, just finding meaning in a broader sense can shore up the defenses. So when adversities happen, you're well protected. So we can use logotherapy for both the micro and the macro. And finally, my manual is primarily about doing logotherapy as a therapy. Now, a lot of people say, well, it's not a therapy. You can incorporate it into other existing therapies. I beg to differ. This manual is primarily how to do logotherapy proper while incorporating other therapeutic techniques. It's similar a little bit to Arnold Lazarus's multimodal therapy, the technical eclecticism. However, let's say you do have other therapies that are your primary therapy, and you do want to incorporate logotherapy. Not have logotherapy, but incorporate it in. In this manual, I show you how to do that. So you can do logotherapy proper, and that's your main focus, and you bring in a few other techniques from other therapies, or you do another therapy, CBT, psychodynamic, Gestalt. That's your primary therapy. And you want to incorporate a few logotherapy techniques. Not a problem. Not a problem. And finally, there is a client workbook. I don't really call it that. Years ago, I had written a book called A Higher Purpose, How to Increase Satisfaction and Meaning in Your Life. And it does have a step-by-step approach on, at the very end, how to actually create your higher purpose plan. But it's a very short book. As you can see, it's more like a booklet. Same thing with this manual, about 25 pages. So if you want the workbook for your clients to do either on their own or with you, this is not as logotherapy specific. It is highly logotherapy, but it's more existential in a broad sense. But I incorporate many of the ideas. So if your clients are looking for something to have as a kind of workbook, they can certainly use that as well. So if you have any questions and comments, I hope this was helpful. I hope you're excited about this. I'm going to do several videos on this. If you're interested, and this is the uncomfortable part, so I beg your indulgence. I am selling this for $20. If you want it, you can kind of send me your information, your email, and I guess if Venmo or Zelle or whatever you want, and it's a PDF, or it's actually Microsoft Word. I can make it a PDF if you're interested. Just because of the nature of this, it's kind of something I've done on my own. It's kind of like all sales final. So I hope you will indulge me in that and then not share it. I don't usually do this to make money. I do this for information, but I am really very excited about this, and I do think it would be worth your while. So I hope that you can forgive this more materialistic statement here. So if you are interested in it, I am selling it for $20. You can email me. It's on the site. And just let me know the best way to, the transaction, PayPal, Venmo, Zelle, check. Again, I hate to be so materialistic in something as noble and transcendent as logotherapy. But if you're interested, just let me know. And also if you want to get some consultation, if you want some thoughts on this, if you want actual logotherapy coaching, and I'm calling it coaching because that's what I want to do. I want to do more coaching. If you need a therapist, try to find one in your state, in your area, and you know, coaching. There's coaching which is not for a diagnosable condition. So I want to differentiate between coaching and therapy. If you want to practice this and you are a therapist and you want some consultation, by all means, reach out. And if you want the workbook, and of course, I'll give information on this for the client. It's on Amazon. Again, if you have any questions, please let me know. And this is a work in progress. So if you have any comments, criticisms, suggestions, please by all means share it with me. And thank you for your time. And I look forward to seeing you in the next video. And I hope you're as excited about this as I am. Be well.